Hello everyone, so welcome back to another video. Today is a really fun and exciting one because I am going to be recreating the wedding makeup, my own bridal makeup that I did on myself before my wedding. Pretty much exactly right now, a week ago, I was getting ready for my wedding day, which is crazy to say that it's been a week ago already. We've been on our honeymoon for a week and it's just been the best time. We've just, yeah, the day was amazing, like could literally not have asked for a better day. And yeah, so I'm just really happy. It's been really, really wonderful. So yeah, but I thought it would be quite fun to just do a little Q&A about the wedding, because I know that there are also quite a lot of questions around like health-wise, kind of how I prepped for the day and how I got through the day. I also did quite a lot of research about how to do my own wedding makeup, so I thought I would impart that wisdom on you because yeah, I think it was pretty good. I think it looked really nice, but also it absolutely lasted all day, all night. I do think all the research that I did paid off. So I've just splashed my face with cold water. That's all I do in the morning. I don't wash it with anything. My skin type is very dehydrated. So while I don't have kind of active dry patches of eczema or anything, my skin is really tight and gets quite dehydrated, and I have not the best skin barrier in the world. So that's the skin type that we're working with. This is my little situation. It's all organized with all the things. The thing that I started with was the Vieve Skin Nova. I use a lot of Vieve on the morning because I really like the products, but also because the owner of Vieve, Jamie Genevieve, does YouTube videos and YouTube tutorials. There's a lot of content online about how to use the stuff, and like I found that really helpful. I will link below all of the different videos that I used or that I watched to kind of help me learn what to do. I am pretty confident with makeup. I used to be way more kind of into it than I am now. So I knew that technique wise I'd be okay, but it was more just about how to apply it in a way that would make it last and that would kind of make me feel confident on the day. So while I'm letting that sink in and get a little bit tacky, I'm going to do my brows. The e.l.f. brow gel, brow lift, this little pot, it's very similar to the Anastasia Brow Freeze, which is about 4 times the price. So I get this with a little spoolie and I just brush them up. I have pretty good brows. I am very blessed, so I don't need to do too much to them. But I find that with products like this, if you do it after you do your base, it will like get a bit grubby and pill kind of thing. So I find that it's best to do this before anything else. I don't really fill my brows in or anything, but if you were going to, then you would do that now. I'm going to go with my Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Filter next. This I used underneath everything. Just a little bit on the high points of my face. Here, here, and here. And the lack of skin prep is going to help products just really not pill, not look weird. I would not introduce anything new that you've not tried before, because that is just a recipe for disaster. And if your makeup starts pilling, it's really difficult to pull it back and sort everything out without starting from scratch. So also, just a disclaimer before I start talking about my health and you know, things that I've been doing to sort of help and support myself. I am not a doctor. I am not really qualified to talk about anyone else's experience or anyone else's, or give any advice really. I am just going to be talking purely about my experience, what I did, what I know works for me, because I have worked really, really hard to kind of get to know and understand my own body, my own illness, my own triggers, all of that kind of thing. So please just take that into consideration. I just don't want anyone to be doing anything that they know isn't right for them. You follow your own gut, you know yourself best, you know your body best. Just get my base ready and then we can start talking. So the first thing I would really suggest that you do is so I'm using Vieve Skin Dew Complexion Balm. I put this in my hand, a little bit of the Vieve Skin Dew, which is sort of their like liquid glow type thing. We actually could not find this stuff on the morning. I literally misplaced it and I couldn't find it. So I had to borrow Hannah's Rare Beauty liquid highlighter, which is quite similar and did the job, but this is what I would have used had I not lost it on the morning of. And then you're going to take your foundation brush. This is my favourite one. This is the one by Merit. And you're going to mix that all into the brush. And you're going to basically prime the brush. You're going to get everything off of your hand into the bristles, like this. And you're going to apply it from the brush, okay? So, and with kind of bouncing, patting motions. We're not going to go too much like this. And you just want to start sort of where you need the most coverage, which for me is like the center of my face, my cheeks. This is just going to give you the best base that's not going to be streaky. So the things I did in the lead up to kind of prepare my body and pace myself, I have been working with a nutritionist who specialises in fatigue conditions for quite some time now, and that was something that I chose to do partly because of where I have been at in my health in general. When I started seeing her in October last year, I was really stuck. I felt really lost with my health and just like in a place where I just didn't know what to do anymore. I kind of had sort of run out of options for myself. Like I'd done everything that I thought was right and it just wasn't working. So I just decided I needed some outside input. So I did lots of research and like had various conversations and tried various things, and then eventually decided, yeah, I'm gonna just bite the bullet and go for it with this lady, which I'm really glad I did, because my main goal with her was kind of using the Kosas concealer. My main goal with her really was to be able to feel confident in the run up to the wedding, pretty much, and not feel like I was just winging it and just trying and like relying on adrenaline too much to get through the day. I really wanted to feel confident and like, yeah, just a bit more like myself, and that was kind of my goal. And we've been implementing various different things, both nutritionally but also nervous system wise, because for me that plays a massive part in my fatigue. We did quite a lot of testing using kind of my DNA and various other things to try and figure out a little bit more what actually for me is behind it, and a lot of that for me is inflammation to do with my endometriosis, and also just complete nervous system crash out. Like I am a very highly sensitive person anyway, and that has been, yeah, just kind of slowly building my confidence in feeling a bit safer in my body and in my system. And also just generally me helping me to understand my body and my symptoms a little bit more. I just didn't really know what I was looking for. I didn't really understand what the cues were. I was just honestly completely disconnected from my body in terms of recognizing certain symptoms and like knowing what to do. So I also for a little bit had the visible armband, which was really, really helpful. I would say that I don't think, for me anyway, and for a lot of people, I don't think you need it for more than maybe 6 months, because once you have the information that it gives you and you learn how to recognize it in your body without having to check the armband, without having to check the app, like you come to rely on it less and less. But that, I would say that was a really, really helpful thing for me in the run up, just understanding pacing a little bit better and understanding what pacing looks like for me and how to tailor it to me. Right, so I've just used the Vieve, what are they called, Eyewand. These are amazing, I really like these. So I've just used the one in vanilla as a base. They really don't move, these. And then I'm going to use this one in Camel, which is a slightly like warmer brown colour. Just in the crease. And the reason I'm doing my eyes now is because one thing that I learnt online is that it's really good to give your base a little bit of time to just settle and move, because now I'm doing my eyes, but once I go back to my base, I can see where product is building up, where it's sitting in fine lines, where it's moving slightly, where I need to go in and put a little bit of extra coverage. So that's quite a good tip. It's like the order in which you do things. Like it's good to swap back and forth so that it gives time for you to see how things are going to move and how things are going to settle. And now I'm going to use the same eye wand but in Hazelnut, which is a little bit of a kind of mauvey shade. And I'm going to use this just along the lash line, just to deepen that a little bit, and kind of up into the outer corner. And my usual kind of colour palette for my makeup is pretty warm, like terracottas and like burnt oranges and quite warm like burnt colours. But for my wedding makeup, I really wanted to go a little bit more almost cool toned, a bit more romantic pinks and purples, like mauvey shades, which I really think helped me to look a little bit different on the day, but in the best way. Like it didn't look like any other makeup that I would usually do. The tones were just a little bit different, which I think suited the kind of bridal vibe of it all a little bit more. So yeah, we just want to get that gradient like this. And now I'm just going to go under my eyes as well with that hazelnut colour. I really like this flat, quite dense brush. And then I'm going to go one shade darker with this shade, Mahogany. So I use this to tightline my upper waterline. Just like this. And then, this is going to be really hard to do on camera, I basically just did the tiniest little wing just on the outer corner. I just use this to stamp into the lash line. And it's important to kind of look straight ahead, keep your eyes open. Then we're just going to drag that out slightly and then use my nail. Like so. And now I'm going to go in with just a fluffy brush and my bronzer, which is the Benefit Hoola bronzer. I'm just going to take that and start kind of blending out. Also, some of the things I tried in the run-up was like experimenting with things like medication routines, various different pain relief options, making sure that I had a really good sleep routine so that there were just certain things that I wouldn't have to worry about as much around the day. So like I have a really good sleep and medication routine, which means that I am pretty much able to get a good night's sleep, which for somebody with ME and various different chronic illnesses, that is one thing I really do not take for granted. Is I am able to get a good night's sleep most of the time. Like I slept pretty well the night before the wedding. Like I know what I need in order to be able to pretty much sleep through the night, and for me that is one of the things that keeps me on the more well side, is knowing that like I have that, which I'm really lucky for. So for example, I use my hen Dew as a real experiment to see how it would be kind of taking certain medications. Like I have POTS medications which keep me upright for a good amount of time, and sort of experimenting with when to eat, how much to eat, when to like be drinking water, when to kind of go for a rest, and like checking in with myself. And yeah, so if you have any kind of semi big things in the run up to your wedding or any big event really, I would use those as an opportunity to just practice and experiment. What I found that my nervous system and my body really struggles with is if going from the 0 to 100 so quickly, because if my body's used to nothing and then suddenly I'm at my wedding day, that's like quite a lot. Whereas just practicing certain elements of things that you might be worried about, like how long can you be on your feet before you start to feel unwell? What are the signs of you purely running on adrenaline and actually maybe needing to fuel your body or take some time out and reset? What are the things that you need other people to remind you to do, like when to eat, when to take your medication? Things like that is really helpful to start planning way ahead and start experimenting with things. I found that really helpful. Come back to the skin now. So I can see that here in the middle of my face there is like some shine and some build up, so I'm just gonna pat that away. This is also a point in which a beauty blender would be nice, because you're able to get rid of some of that excess that's sort of sitting on top of the skin. I can see on my forehead it's really building up in my fine lines, so I'm just gonna pat some of that back and just generally give my skin a bit of a once over. Anywhere where the coverage feels a bit too much or you can really see the product. If there's any blemishes or anything that have started to appear again, now's a good time to just go in and spot conceal. So for my blush, again, usually I really go for the kind of orangey terracotta blushes, but I wanted to keep it really bridal and really romantic. So I used the Vieve Sunset Blush in Rosa. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put some on my hand, like about this much, and then I'm going to mix this with the same Skin Dew. And mixing this in is just going to give you that really like luminous glow without it being a stripy highlight. Right, so I'm just loading this up on this brush, which is from Schumacher. I've had this for ages. Right, and I'm really getting that in the brush, and then I'm going to start patting that out. And this is just blush phase 1, so don't worry, we're going to build it up more. And what we're going to do is we're going to do everything with creams first, and then we're going to set everything with the same product but powder version. And that is what is really the game changer in terms of getting things to last. So I'm going to bring that up to my forehead, on the nose. And because we've not powdered or anything yet, you can really, this will hopefully kind of really merge with your base product that's underneath as well. I'm like barely getting through these questions. I'm really struggling to do everything at once. That was one thing on the actual day, I would say, is if you're doing your own makeup, try and keep your room as distraction free as possible, because it's obviously not the way that you would usually do your makeup. You've maybe got a few extra steps in there, or a few different, like you're maybe doing things in a slightly different order than you usually would. So I really needed to be able to concentrate to make sure I didn't miss anything. And so just try and keep the space where you're getting ready in as like calm and distraction free as possible. I'm now going in with cream contour. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Contour Wand. I'm just going to carve out here, here, and just start buffing that up to just create that shadow. And with this, you also want to go back towards and over your ears, depending on how your hair is going to be. My hair was up, so I did need to be looking out for my ears. Under the nose. Obviously you do whatever you need or want in terms of contouring. And then at this point I'm going to set my face with some setting spray. So I use the Decay All Nighter. I actually really like the glow version of this, but I ran out, so I used the normal one. So it's important that you shake it and that you don't spray too close to your face, but I go in quite heavy with this. Like that. And then I have a fan on hand. Make sure there's no like wet drops on my face, and it feels really nice too. Right, so I'm going to give that a second to set and answer some more questions. I kind of basically had a plan in terms of my pacing, which was that the month before the wedding, so once my hen do was done, once I had my final dress fitting and all the kind of various activities that I had before to do before the wedding, that the month before I wouldn't plan anything. And before that point, I'd kind of already had a little bit of a rule for myself that at the weekend, so I work part-time, so I have a 3-day weekend, I have Mondays off. So before that month, I said that I would only have one plan every weekend. So whether that was something to leave the house or whether someone was coming to me, I would only do one thing. So it would usually be on a Sunday, which meant that I would have 2 days either side to really rest. And that is something that I think I will continue, because it was actually the perfect amount of activity, and it really made sure that I had enough time to come back from it and have time for myself and the things that I enjoy doing as well outside of socializing. And then the month before the wedding, I basically said no plans, and that was just really time for me to focus in on any last stressful things that needed doing planning wise, but also just to really like give myself space. Now this was in theory a really good plan, and I think still a really good plan. Like I'm glad that I did it, but it meant that about 2 weeks before the wedding I was quite an anxious mess, because I had absolutely zero things to distract me. I was like pretty much fully done in terms of wedding planning. Like I didn't have any big things left to do, which was exactly how I planned it. But I also was just so, I wasn't stressed about the day itself. I was just very overwhelmed at the thought of it. And I just have the kind of brain that's like completely overactive all the time. So I just had so much going on up here. I was really busy in my brain and didn't have any capacity for any sort of soft distractions like reading or any of the things that I usually really love to do. So that was really tough. But then as soon as the week before the wedding started, and as soon as I was kind of up there in the flow of things, I was absolutely fine. It just that week before, there was just too much space for my brain, and in hindsight maybe I should have had a few more things in, like people coming to me or just kind of safe, very safe, low spoons activities. And then on the day itself, there were a few things that I put in place. So One of my friends was on meds, so she had a alarm set and would come over to me every 4 hours saying, have you taken your meds, and giving me something to eat to take my meds with, which was really, really important. It was really important that I ate something. I know that for me, once my nausea gets going, it's really, really difficult to stay on top of that. So it was important that I stay ahead of that as much as possible and just have tiny bites to eat. Like, you really don't need lots if you're struggling. My anxiety and adrenaline was just through the roof that I didn't really have an appetite, but I knew that I would only feel worse if I didn't have something. So whatever your safe foods are, mine are like rice cakes first thing, just to like give my body something to kind of start working with, and then I can build up to like more nutritiously dense things. But for me, rice cakes with a bit of cheese on is like all that I need really, and then slowly I can start building up to like, then I think while I was doing my makeup and getting ready, I had like a bowl of yogurt, which is quite a safe thing for me and that doesn't really trigger any nausea or food aversion, so that was quite helpful. You never know how it's going to be. I had things in place that I ended up not needing, so like quiet spaces where I could go and lie down or sit or rest away from everybody if I needed to. So those things were set up and I did have them in place should I have needed them. However, I was really stubborn on the day and I just didn't want to miss out on anything. I think that is, again, a really individual thing. I was just so happy and enjoying myself so much, particularly in the evening. I should have probably taken more breaks from the dance floor, but I never go out, I never get to dance. I love dancing and I love music and I love like moving my body, and that's one of the cruelest things about this illness, is how much those really enjoyable things can also tire you out. But I just didn't want to. I didn't want to take myself away from it. Like, I didn't want to miss out. I just didn't want to, and so I didn't. But if I had needed it, then there would have, I just realised I've had contour under my lip this whole time. If I had needed it, it would have been there. It's very important just to think about yourself and know yourself and what you need. Like, use the planning time to get to know your body and to get to know the cues, get to know what you need, and then give yourself that. It's not a one size fits all at all. So like, how does it operate for you and how can you transition that into the planning of your day? Hello, it's me from my editing chair. I just want to say here, because I didn't say it in the video, because I was literally so bad at multitasking. Oh my god, there's so many questions I didn't answer. All the work that I'd done in the lead up and also everything I planned after the wedding meant that I could risk not taking breaks and that I could fully give myself to the day. Because say like I hadn't planned 2 weeks off after the wedding and say I was going back to work on the Tuesday, I would have made completely different decisions on the wedding day, because I would have been thinking like, this crash is going to be catastrophic. But it's not just about the day itself when it comes to pacing and when it comes to mitigating a crash. It's also about the cumulative effects of the days and weeks leading up to the day and also the days and weeks after the day. And I would really encourage you, if you're thinking about a big event or a wedding or whatever, to really take like a month either side into account when it comes to planning for a crash. So at this point, you maybe would want to touch up your eyes. I'm pretty happy with how my eyes look, so I think I'm just kind of going to leave it at that. My base is like into my skin. I'm just going to add a tiny little bit more blush. This is the Merit Beauty Blush Balm in Postmodern, which is so nice for just giving a little lift on the apples of the cheeks. And then we're going to go in with, oh, that's so gorgeous. This is like such a beautiful bridal shade. It's really nice on the lips as well. So just under here, a little bit on the nose. This is the point of no return. So if there's anything cream-wise that you want to change or fix, now is the time to do it, because once you've got your powder on, it's going to be really hard to kind of fix it in terms of textures and layering. So I'm pretty happy with mine. So I used the Laura Mercier translucent ultra blur one, but I think any of these kind of loose powders are really good. And we're gonna prime the brush. So I'm gonna, with whatever's in the lid, I'm just gonna sweep my little brush around in that, and I really like this shape. I'm gonna get it all in my brush, and then I'm gonna go in where I get the most shine. So that's under my eyes, the sides of my nose. My upper lip gets a bit sweaty. The bridge of my nose. And then any extra powder you take up, you don't want to put this straight on your face. You want to go back in the lid, get it right in the brush. We're going to powder again, so don't worry. This is just the first layer. Everything we've just done, cream-wise, we're going to do it again, but with powders. So, and I'm going to start with my bronzer. So again, go in, prime the brush, and then take any excess off. And you just want to go in those hollows, but then it really depends on the shade that you've gone for. So this is like a slightly warmer type of bronzer rather than a contour. So I'm going a little bit on the high points as well. And again, we're not rubbing. We're sort of just patting it in. And you want to kind of be looking face on in the mirror so you can really see the angles of your face and where you want the light to hit, where you want things to be. There was also a lot of questions about kind of how I managed on the day in terms of just both my symptoms, but also just feeling overwhelmed, and also managing kind of the pressure that you might have to feel, for it to be perfect and for you to feel your best. There are definitely things in the lead up in terms of my nervous system work that really, really, really supported me on the day and really helped me to stay present, because one of the things I was really worried about was pretty much like blacking out on the day and just it happening and it passing me by and then me not really remembering anything or not even really just being there. I was just worried about that, but actually there was a lot of work that I'd done in the lead up that really supported me on the day, that I didn't even really have to think about because they'd become so much part of how I am and how I do things because of all that work that I've been doing. So just things in terms of how you actually breathe, learning how to breathe properly, belly breathing, pelvic floor exercises, like relaxing exercises, things like that. I will say that there is a lot that softens the blow or softens the overwhelm that just comes from being around people who only love you. And that is one thing that we are so lucky and grateful for. Like whenever I'd imagined the day and been like, I don't know how anyone does this, is because I wasn't picturing it with all the people that were there. And really it wasn't so scary because I was just looking out and seeing people who I love. So remember that. It's really hard to picture it before, but there was so much in terms of my anxiety, my social anxiety, or just generally being overstimulated or just feeling overwhelmed. Having all those people around you really goes a long way. There was just a few of my friends who I'd see them, like they were over there having a little drink, and I'd just go up to them and be like, can I just sit here and can you protect me from people coming up to me? And like, because there are some, obviously you're not going to get out of the small talk, like wedding is just small talk central, but there were also people who understand me and like know me and knew that I would just need a little break, and so they'd just come up to me and like pull me away for a sec, and that was really helpful. And also when me and Ben were doing our individual like couple photos, because you're away anyway, before we then went and rejoined everybody, we just like stayed where we were for a little bit on the little bench in a very like cool, quiet corner of the grounds where we were getting married, and we just hung out there for like 10-15 minutes and just, I took my medication and I just like, we had a drink and we chatted and caught up because we'd not really even seen each other properly up until that point. And it was just really, that was really nice. So I would say make sure that you take that time with your new spouse, because that was really lovely, and that like really gave me a bit of a second wind going into it, because I was very, very tired after the service and the bits after the service. Another interjection, I also experimented loads with various like sensory aids. So I have quite an extensive collection of earplugs at this point. My favourites for the day that I had in all day were the Flare earplugs, because I find that all of the loops, including the one with the least amount of noise reduction, you still can hear yourself as if you're plugging your ears, and you can hear your voice very loudly in your ears, and you can't really tell how loud you're speaking. But the Flares don't have that whatsoever. So it meant that I could still like be in the day and engage with people in conversation without being self-conscious about how loud I was speaking and what I sounded like, and I could eat fine without having the noise of me chewing like really loud in my ears. But they really soften the edges of all the noise, and that was really, really helpful. I can't really leave the house without them, to be honest. I could have swapped to a different pair for the evening bit when it came to the music, but I was just having too much fun at that point, so I just completely forgot. But yeah, and I got the Flares in the nude colour, and you can't see them in the photos at all, because I had the purple ones before and you can see them from the outside, but I had the nude ones and they were just in there and nobody could tell. Nobody asked me about them, even though my hair was up. You can't see them in the photos, so yeah. And also, I say it a little bit later when it comes to my outfit, but just mitigate as much sensory discomfort as possible. Why the hell are you wearing heels when you never wear heels and you're just going to be uncomfortable, and that's just going to be extra spoons going on you feeling uncomfortable? Like, why would you do that? You know, things like that, just like mitigate as much of that as possible. Now that is all looking very nice, I'm going to put some blush on, and I would say this was one of the new products I bought, which was I was the most happy with, and it was the Saie Super Suede Radiant Blush Powder, and this is in the shade Mia, and again you can just see these are the kind of colours I was going for. So, and this has like it's not got shimmer in, but it's just got a little bit of a glow to it. And basically what I'm trying to do is like build up as much of that glow without it having to be a striped highlighter, because I've still not really found anything that works for me in that department. This is really pigmented, so just one tap onto the lid and then pat that on. You can always build it up, but this really just gave me like a really healthy radiant glow on the day. Put on the nose. And blush does fade, so like don't be afraid of just going in a little bit more, but I did check with my friends that I was getting ready with, just don't want any blush blindness. I'm going to spray one more time. I'm going to use this All Nighter setting spray again, and this is just going to melt all the powder into one, and then afterwards we're going to powder one more time. That feels so good. Managing expectations for a perfect day. Yeah, that was a hard one. There's a lot that you can do in the planning. I am a project manager, so I did have a very detailed plan and itinerary and timeline. So there was a lot that I tried to get past just in terms of planning. And I do think that really paid off. It was pretty intense, but for me, there is also just there's no other way for me to be. There's no other way. There would have been no other way for me to plan it, because that's what I need in order to feel safe and like I'm in control. So it's a double-edged sword being that kind of person, but I do think that that really paid off in terms of how seamless the day was and how little went wrong. There was loads that we were very lucky with. The weather, I mean, if it had been today, it would have been grey and rainy. So, and we were really lucky just with the people that we had around us. Like my parents, Ben's parents did loads for us. My friends were a massive help, especially my best friend Shannon. She just like was fully there for me and me only. I obviously one day hope that she does find a significant other, but it was very nice for her not to have a +1 because it meant that I didn't feel guilty about taking her away from spending time with anyone else. Like I just asked her to be there for me a lot and she was amazing. Like, and if you do have somebody like that who you can lean on, where you feel safe around them and you feel like they understand you and they can be fully there for you, like that's a really big blessing, and I'm so like unbelievably grateful for her. There were little things that didn't go quite right, things that weren't as seamless as I would have liked them to be, but it happens, and the day was as close to perfect as it could have been, and you just have to let it happen. And that was really, I thought it was going to be a lot harder for me than it was, but the day does just go, and you just have to hope that all your planning and all the things that you've put in place like work out for you. And for me for me in my case it really did. So right, I'm just gonna go in with my last little bit of powder, and this is really gonna help it lock in. Go back in and just really get that powder all up in the bristles. Any last bits, I'm just a bit shiny. I want to like diffuse any texture or pores or anything. So my favourite lip combo, so I really should have put some lip balm on but I didn't. So I've got MAC Stripdown and Vieve in Brat. Now these are my winning combination because Stripdown is a little bit browner. So I'm going to use this to outline. Okay, but that on its own is a little bit too brown, right? So then I'm going to take Brat, which is pinkier, and I'm going to go over more towards the middle. Blend those two out together. You can go for a matte lip, or I went for a little bit of a lip oil. This is the Vieve Lip Dew in Rosa. And I just put a tiny and then for mascara, I used the Vieve Modern Mascara, which doesn't transfer, but it does come off with warm water. So I used this and then went over it with a waterproof mascara. I just love how this makes my lashes look. But whatever you're like with mascara, just try it out beforehand, because that's where it can go wrong. So to stop this from transferring, it's important to look down. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And then I like to really pull the lashes at the side. Great. I'll show you how to fix that in a sec. And then I went over it with Urban Decay Perversion waterproof mascara, and this did not move. This formula is a little bit drier. Okay, and then with any transfer, you want to take a little eyebrow brush, like a spoolie, and we're just gonna flick it off. At the end, I just went over my little freckle. I've done a terrible job at answering these questions while I've been doing my makeup, but now it's done, I'm just going to whiz through the final few. I hope that's okay. There was a question about planning around my endometriosis, which was definitely a thing for me, and I'm assuming that you mean planning around your period and your pain cycle. So I am on quite a lot of medication to kind of suppress my cycle, but I still get one. Not a full-on one, but it is still pretty debilitating, or can be, and it's pretty unpredictable as well. But I pretty much regularly every 2 weeks get some kind of ovulation and then a period. I don't bleed very much, but it's a lot to do with my pain, and I have also pretty severe estrogen intolerance in general. So when I ovulate and my estrogen is higher, I get really unwell and like nauseous and throw up a lot and things like that. So luckily the wedding was in an in-between week, which I don't know who sorted that out up there, but it was really lucky. But I did have a few things on hand to kind of try and help myself. So I used the BU period patches, which are like a natural menthol, which I don't use that often because I have quite sore skin, sensitive skin on my tummy from using hot water bottles so much. But that I did use on the day, and that was really helpful because my pain does tend to get worse when I'm stood up for a long amount of time. If you do wake up in a flare on the morning, and that was a fear that I had, like having the right painkillers on hand, like just doing whatever you need to do to kind of get through it. But I would also not underestimate the power of adrenaline and how much that kind of does just keep you from feeling a lot of the things that are happening in your body, for better or for worse. And it is okay to rely on that. It's okay for this one day to kind of rely on adrenaline to get you through. Then I also had a few questions in terms of like actually planning the wedding and sort of decisions that we made on the day. There's a question of where do I even start? I've got planning paralysis, and yeah, I fully understand that. We could have gotten married last summer, but we just decided we did not want to do it in such a rushed timeline, and that was in the end a really good thing because it meant we had lots of time to make decisions. And we had lots of time at the beginning to just think. Take your time to just think about it. Imagine the day, like imagine what you actually want and just do the research. You know, things are more expensive than you probably think they will be. So some options that you have in your head as options might actually not be options financially. I will say there is just no way we would have had this wedding had it not been for the contributions of like family. They really, really helped us out financially and like physically with doing things. And while we maybe could have done it, we wouldn't have wanted to spend all of our money on this necessarily. So it was a real, like, yeah, complete credit to them for helping us have the day that we ultimately did, because yeah, and that's just me being completely transparent. So yeah, the wedding industry is not transparent whatsoever, so it is important that you build in time for research and just, yeah, asking questions, seeing if this is the right fit for you. I would say you need to start with the venue, because that is the thing that gets booked up. That's the thing that probably costs the most money, but it is also the thing that you need to know quite a lot about the type of wedding you're going to have in order to decide on a venue. You need to kind of have a rough idea of your budget, of the amount of people, of when and where you want to get married, of the kind of food that you want, because venues can be quite restrictive in terms of catering options. It's easier said than done to have that be the first thing, because you need to know a lot. You need to have already made a lot of decisions about the direction you're going in before you decide on your venue. And don't talk to too many people before you've made any decisions, because things will change over the course of the wedding planning. And I would say, like, for the first few months, just keep your mouth shut. Just don't commit to anything for anybody, because they'll find out later down the line. And it's kind of like telling people the name of your baby before it's born. Like, you're opening yourself up to opinions from people, and maybe you just want to make your own decisions. So just, yeah, think about who you tell your plans to before you actually make them. and before you decide what you really want. There were definitely points where I was stressed and overwhelmed in the planning. That was another question. I would say the very beginning and the very end are the most stressful parts, because at the beginning you've got no idea and it's all new and you're just trying to figure it out, and there's a lot of decisions that you didn't think you'd have to make so soon. And then at the end, there is just lots that you can't do until the very end, and having that all swirling around in your brain is really overwhelming and really difficult. But I would say it was worth it for me. It was worth all the overwhelm and the stress and like the neuroses. So knowing that there's an end in sight is really useful. And also, yeah, just having that end goal, like, what are you doing this for? Why is this important? Like, we never really lost sight of why this was important to us and why we were deciding to go through all of this. Remembering why it's important, it was really helpful for us. The food, we really wanted to make sure no one went hungry, so we had a lunch after the service at the church. I think was really a really good move, because it meant that nobody had to wait to eat. We did have caterers for that, but that would be definitely possible to do with, like, well, M&S is now not really a thing anymore, but with some kind of sandwich, big sandwich platters and things like that. Everyone came to the reception venue. We had like a cocktail hour, and then we went into dinner, which was Indian Pakistani food, and it was unreal. I didn't really eat much of it because I couldn't. I had too much adrenaline in my body, but I ate a bit and we had leftovers. But everyone enjoyed it so much. There was so much food, and like every single person I spoke to said it was an amazing choice. So don't feel like you need to be bound by tradition in terms of having a proper 3-course sat down plated up meal, you know. Like, we had sort of, it was all sharing style, and it meant that everybody could really get into it with their table, and that was really lovely, and everyone was really enjoying it. And then in the evening, for evening snacks, we went to Costco and we got a huge amount of like crisps, popcorn, sweets. We had the cake. The flowers, there are a few questions about the flowers. So obviously, as you know, flowers are really important to me. It was really important that the flowers be seasonal and be locally sourced. And I also wanted to, as much as possible, kind of work with smaller businesses. I found a local grower in Leeds who does basically DIY weddings. So she doesn't set anything up for you, but anything that you want her to kind of make beforehand, she'll make, but she won't do the installing of it in the venue. So I decided I wanted her to make my wedding bouquet, because that was not something I felt confident in doing myself. And also the buttonholes. So those are things I just didn't have to worry about. She made them. And then for the rest of them, we got big buckets of flowers. So we had lots of different types of flowers. I kind of gave her my colour scheme, and she sort of picked what was seasonally available. Obviously, with the really hot weather, there was lots of things that maybe wouldn't have been available otherwise. So if you're really hoping for like specific flowers, that's not really the way to do it. But because I was not so bothered by specific flowers, it was more about the colour and the vibe. I'm really glad that we went with her. So I had sent her a photo of my dress, and I don't know if this, I mean, I'm sure it was intentional. Rebecca was amazing, but the texture of the butterfly ranunculus was almost like silk, and it was like shiny, and it really was like my dress. Like, my dress was so, it like glowed almost, how shiny and beautiful the silk was. My dress was from a brand called Rolling in Roses. They have a shop in York, but they also do pop-ups elsewhere. But I really wanted a kind of non-traditional outfit that was very form-fitting and comfortable, and they are also a sustainable brand, so all of their dresses are made with sustainable materials. And I also really loved that they had separate, so I really wanted something that had the option of sleeves. I didn't want to have to completely change my dress, because I felt like that would just be such a waste. So they had like I had a blouse kind of thing that went over the top, that I wore for the first half of the day, and then I took that off, and underneath was this kind of really silky, slinky, lovely, gorgeous dress, which had an amazing back. Like, the straps on the back were incredible. So in that way, I felt like I could have a bit of an outfit change, and it was so comfortable. It was so, yeah, didn't feel uncomfortable all day. Also because I wore flats, so my shoes are from Flabuleus. Beautiful like velvet green shoes, which really tied in the green theme. And I would really recommend just doing what you want to do. Like, there were certain decisions that I made that
Some people were maybe a bit like, oh, that's interesting that you've done that, and I hadn't even really thought twice about it. But just get so in your own head about what you want that it just doesn't matter what other people think, and that's the most important thing. And also pick your battles. Like if there's some things that you feel less strong about but maybe a family member does, if that's the hill you want to die on, then do it. But if it's not, then you can also let it go and you can have fights about other things. So I think we got the balance of that quite well. Like there were certain concessions that we made, and that was totally fine, because in general the day still really felt like ours. But there was nothing where I felt like I really compromised on like what I wanted, you know. I think I'm kind of there, to be honest. I've been filming for an hour and 20 minutes, so this is the makeup. That was my day, and it was amazing. It was amazing, and I'm never gonna get over it. I'm gonna be riding this high for the rest of my life. But I am equally really glad that it's over. Like, it feels so good to have done it now and to have it in my brain only as like a memory, not as something that I'm worried or anxious about. We have the best memories, the best photos. It's been so fun debriefing with everybody. So yeah, if you have any further questions, leave them down below. I've definitely missed something out, but I literally simply cannot keep talking. I hope you enjoyed this slightly chaotic, very long video. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this down, but I'm gonna have to figure it out. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in a new video soon. Bye.